Hey, what's going on? This is Rad with SOFREP Radio, and I have a really cool episode today. But first, before I introduce my two guests, I want to tell you about sofrep.com/book-club. That's right. We have a book club, and we have put a lot of time and dedicate a lot of resources to showing you our book club. So go to sofrep.com/book-club, and also our merch. Man, we have really been happy sending you guys out this stuff. I've been getting tagged in it. So please keep doing that, and also keep purchasing the merch. It keeps us going, and we love the SOFREP Mafia representing all around the world. So thanks so much for that. Now, I have Guy McCardle Jr., one of SOFREP's editors and masterminds behind the writings and things that you guys read. And then today's guest is going to be Barry Cohen. Now, Barry comes from a background of watches, okay? Timepieces, things that you wear on your wrist, things that have changed so much since the beginning of the railroad time, okay? Where we click on the little, round dial to see how fast the train was coming or something. So Barry, welcome to our show and welcome ProTek, your company.
Hey, thanks so much. Appreciate you having me today, Rad. Nice to see you again also, Guy.
That's right. Now, let me just kind of step in here real quick. We all had a powwow at SHOT Show of 2024 and linked up together, right?
That's right, sir.
And how was SHOT Show for you, Barry?
SHOT Show is by far our most important show for the type of watches we make, and the show was fantastic for us. One of the benefits of SHOT is you get to see people from around the world, and so we were able to open up and access different geographies that we didn't have yet, like the United Kingdom and Sweden, and some push into Germany, and some work in Latin and South America and Mexico, and so basically it was a good success for us.
Now, there's a watch that you got. Okay, so let's go back a little bit. Okay, so we know ProTek, we've just dropped that. But let's go back to what got you into where you're at today. And is it my understanding that the glowing features that we have all become accustomed to, like Luminix, right, on the dials and on the faces of watches, that comes from your side of the brain?
Well, it certainly wasn't my invention. And if you said Luminix and you were referring to Luminox, that was just happy to correct you there for the sake of accuracy. So an old friend of mine, Richard Timbo, and I both founded the Luminox brand in 1989. And the thinking at that, that's quite a while ago, huh? And the thinking at that time, I had been looking for some type of technology to be able to sustain a brand, have a point of difference. And when I caught wind of this, what I'm going to call enabling self-powered lume technology, I thought we should put this into watches. We're already selling watches. Let's put it into watches, create a brand for whom the highlight or the USP of the brand will be this self-powered lume. And this had existed before us. Of course, it was in night sights of guns, and it's been in other applications, compasses, and a number of different, what I would primarily call military applications. And in fact, there were two watches out at the time, two brands, when I went to this physicist company in Switzerland to try and acquire this. There were two that were already making watches that were being supplied to the military. But my thinking, once again, was, why limit it there? Wouldn't every consumer enjoy having this, once again, enabling technology? And that was the advent of Luminox. That's how we started it. And it got off and running, and, luck plays a role, Rad. We had a good idea. We were marketing it. We were already in tons of mail order catalogs with other products. Remember, that was the heyday of mail order back in the 90s. And we were at a trade show, it was an outdoor retailer show, and we got lucky when a gentleman from the Navy SEALs happened upon our booth and said, "I've been looking for you guys. I've been looking for this technology, and if you'll make a watch for us, we're not going to buy that many, but then you can go tell the world that you supplied the Navy SEALs, and maybe that will resonate." And that definitely did resonate, and that coupled with a heck of a lot of long work days got us to the point of having an established brand over a few years.
No, that's awesome. And pretty incredible too, because, you're just out there and you're hustling and you're trying to make it, and somebody has been seeking you out. That had to feel good to be seeked out for what you were making, right? I mean, who wouldn't want to be able to see what time it was? Or, obviously the lens static compass for my listener. If you're not familiar with what we're talking about, when you're looking at the old school compasses and you shine a flashlight on it, they glow. And you can see the course, you can see north and all the different, points, 180, 360 on the compass. Well, that is also now inside of, what we're talking about, the watches. And, for a SEAL to be able to see underwater, right? A clear, like glowing, what time it is or what direction, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yep. And the benefit of this, there's been a lot. If you don't mind, I'll take you back in time a little bit and give you a little discussion of, just to give you a little discussion basically about lume on timepieces. Very often wars, nobody advocates for war, obviously. We'd rather not have them, but wars do beget new technologies and things come from that. And during World War I, it was really the first time that wristwatches were worn by men. Prior to that, the men wore pocket watches, and it was pretty obvious that if you're in the trenches and you're carrying your military gear, you don't really have another hand to be pulling a pocket watch out. So that was the advent of wearing watches on the wrist for men, where they strapped the watch to the wrist. Now, in those days, they were using radium paint on the dials, and nobody knew at the moment that radium was such a noxious substance, and indeed many of the people working in the watch factories died young from radioactive poisoning. Sometime between World War I and World War II, there was a move to tritium paint, and tritium is a harmless but still nuclear substance, and tritium paint became sort of the staple of luminous time for a number of years. I believe it was in the 60s, late 60s, superluminova came about. And that is today the staple of photoluminescent lume. And all lumes out there are truly photoluminescent. And what does that mean? It means light has to hit that paint that's on the dial, the hands, and it activates or charges the illumination, and it gives or emits a glow until it needs to be recharged with another external light source. That's the standard. And there are plenty that are very, very good. The thicker you paint it on a watch hand or a dial, multi-painting, multi-print, the more material, the more light energy it can absorb, and therefore it can emit and give back for a longer period of time and brighter. And there are some that are so thickly painted that you can get a solid 5 hours of night lume reading capability with dark adapted eyes. We make some in other brands we have. But what we discovered here was really a breakthrough in that this is self-powered lume. So it is not photoluminescence. It does not need light to hit the dial. Again, much like the gun sights that many of your listeners and viewers would know about. So this is really a completely different thing from the watches. There's a lume factory, and then there's a watch factory. And this is borosilicate glass tubes in micro sizes that are filled with a glue, then filled with a phosphor to make sure it lines the entire inner core of that vessel. Then it is taken to a vacuum machinery where heavy hydrogen, that would be H3, which is tritium, is pumped in a gaseous form, and it's sealed with a CO2 laser. Now, from the moment that tube is sealed, the tritium is emitting beta, and the beta causes that phosphor to fluoresce on its own, nonstop for 25 years. And so that's what we have in the ProTek brand. It's what I had in the Luminox brand. And that's how you arrive at this, once again, enabling capability to be able to see time at a glance, no matter the light level, including complete darkness. Now, all of that's done at this laboratory, but then these tubes that are cut with a CO2 laser, so you get a nice rounded edge on the tube ends, These tubes are cut into the size for minute hands, for hour hands, for the indices, for second hands, for the dial, bezel pip for a dive watch. And 10,000 tubes fits into a box about 4 inches by 4 inches by 1 inch.
Yeah.
And that box is then shipped to the watch assembly facility where the tubes are attached to the dials, attached to the hands, and then conventional watchmaking takes over from there. So I don't mean to wax on too much, but that's the technology.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And they're much smaller than a grain of rice. Very small, micro tubules, I believe they're called.
Are they
really are micro.
Is it all so you have a bezel and you have to put the illuminescent or the lume technology on the bezel and on the face and all that? Like, is that just done very delicately? Is that done by a machine? Is that done by person?
Well, a great deal of it is done by hand, but today they do have robotics that can place them onto the dials or onto
let's
the
call it AI.
bezels. Well, it's a robot, but actually for our brand, they're all done by hand. And part of it is we use different size tubes, and some of those tubes aren't robotically placed. But to Guy's point, when you say micro, it really is micro. They're from 0.3 of a millimeter to 2/3 of a millimeter on the watch hands and on the different indices. There are bigger tritium tubes. In fact, our field watch uses tubes that are 1.5 by 5 millimeters as watch indices, and these are big rectangular tubes. Most of the tubes we use are cylindrical.
It'd be cool to watch the process, all the CO2 laser cut up close, or seeing it put the tritium gas inside of it, or any of that kind of thing would be just magnificent to see. I love I like the internal workings of watches. I like people opening them up on social media and working with their fingers on all of the different aspects of watches. So having this conversation is really intriguing. It's really nerdy. And I'm sure that, there's so much that goes into it, right? There's a cost to people putting things on that. There's a cost to that laser cut. There's a cost to, the 4x4 by 1 inch box shipping, the person that shipped it, right? All this has to factor in to the watch.